Welcome back to That's So Nourishing. In today's episode, we are going to be talking all about want. What do you want? This is going to be a two-parter. In this first episode, we're going to talk about what do you want and the baggage behind wanting and why wanting is such a complex subject and really the day-to-day wants. So what you want in your day-to-day life. And in the next episode, in part 2, we're going to really talk about why you want it and talking about the bigger wants and desires that we have and really making sure that we're creating these wants from a place that's super aligned with us so that when we get what we want, we're actually feeling really fulfilled and glad that we have it instead of getting what we want and being like, wait, this isn't how I thought that it was. So we're really going to go deep in the next episode. We're going to go big picture and deep in the next episode. And in here, we're going to be talking about really laying the foundation for that and talking about the day-to-day wants and digging into the conditioning behind wanting in general. Because there's a lot that comes with wanting. There's a lot of baggage behind it because of how we're conditioned all throughout our lives. So as I go through this episode, just start to notice where you fall on the scale of wanting. Are you someone who really knows what they want and can make decisions really easily and will see two different options, whether it's what they want for dinner or what they want to do today or what they want to become in life or what they want for their family, and they can easily make a quick decision? Or are you someone who is like, whoa, there's a lot of options. I want to see them all. I'm not really sure what I want. If I do this, maybe this happens. But then if I do this, maybe this happens. Or I want to wait and see what someone else wants. I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I want to make sure they're happy too. I don't want to be difficult and just decide what I want and say that. Like, where do you fall on that spectrum? And what relationship do you have to wanting? Do you own your wants? Do you own your desires and what you want to do, or to kind of shy away from them and shrink back a little bit? Just notice what comes up for you here. Because this topic of wanting really has so much around it. A lot of times as women, we can be told that our wants don't matter or that they're too much, or we need to make sure everyone else gets what they want before what we want. We need to be the good girl, or that we need to please others. A lot of times then what we make that mean for us is that we're not allowed to have wants, or that it's uncomfortable actually having wants, and it creates this interesting relationship with want where we feel like we can't actually have what we want, or that we're not worthy of our wants, or that we can't even decide things that we want. And we can get to this place where it can be hard to actually know what we want. So that's really what I want us to touch on in this episode. A lot of times you might notice for people, it's really easy to say what they don't want instead of what they want, or it's not easy for people to actually know what they want. And this is because this conditioning starts at a really young age. A lot of times when we want something, we maybe get told by our parents that that's too much, or that's really inconvenient, or it's impractical, or it's not as important as what everyone else needs. Or like the whole family needs this, so we have to do this. I understand you want this, but it's just not going to happen right now. Or we really want a candy and we're told, no, we can't have that. It's bad for our teeth. Or we want pizza for dinner and we're told we can't have that. We have to have broccoli. Or we want to stay up late and we're told no. So we're showed that either our wants aren't as important as others, or that they're just not the quote unquote like right thing for the moment, or we're told no, that we can't have what we want. And so we start to internalize this around our wants, that it's something that we really can't have or that we're not supposed to want. And this lays a really intense foundation for the rest of our lives when it comes to actually feeling comfortable deciding what we want and either going after it or letting people know in different situations that this is what we want and being able to make that happen. Depending on how parents handled this throughout our lives, or how school or how whoever was telling us no when we wanted something, this will imprint inside our nervous systems very differently. But if we were told no to a lot of different things and we were never actually explained why we couldn't have it, we may have internalized this either directly or indirectly that, again, our wants aren't important and that we can't have what we want, which, like I was saying earlier, can create a lot when it comes to actually being able to own our wants or feeling like we can want. So we internalize this at a young age, what's actually safe to want and what isn't okay to want, what we should want or what we shouldn't, and what's just not possible, what we need to rule out. And our nervous system starts to develop and really decide like what is okay with wanting, what is our relationship to that, and where does it feel safe to actually want something versus, again, just not wanting anything at all and not feeling safer and not wanting to rock the boat. So we have all of this getting laid out when we're younger on this foundation of wanting and feeling like we can want things. And then there's this other side of it too with our conditioning from our parents, from school, from our siblings, from our friends, from social media, from society, from the news, from all these different places coming at us, really telling us what is appropriate to want, what we shouldn't want, what's desirable, what's considered successful or we should aspire to, and what's like, no, that's too taboo, you shouldn't want that, that's bad. And through this, we're shown all our lives what we should want and what we should desire and then what we shouldn't. And we start to formulate these ideas around it. We start to really integrate and think that this is what I want. But what we don't realize is that a lot of times maybe we're just wanting something because that's what we've been shown our entire lives is what we should want and what's accepted and approved and will get love and connection, which is ultimately what we're all desiring deep down. And then throw on top of this, keeping up with the Joneses. Whether you like it or not, this is just something that happens, and it can be really hard to pull yourself out of that comparing, especially now when we have social media and we're seeing what people are doing all of the time. And we're seeing, ooh, that looks really cool for that person. Maybe I actually should want that. Or wow, she did this. I want that. I didn't even know that was possible. Or wow, I didn't even know I was craving this type of food, but then I saw that someone else was having it online and now I want it. I've never had that. And we start to develop all of these wants through things that we're seeing and through this kind of keeping up with the Joneses mentality or through different things that we are taking in, different stimuli that we're taking in throughout our day to day. And all of this is brewing behind what we actually decide for ourselves that we want or that we don't want. But with all of this, something really important to note is that all of these things are coming from the outside. When we were kids, it's how people reacted to the things that we wanted, whether they gave them to us or whether they approved of them or whether they didn't. And whether they didn't because they explained why they didn't or because they had no explanation. So we just decided that our wants weren't worthy or weren't valid. And then from stimuli that we're seeing all around us that we're taking in, that's telling us what's accepted, what's not accepted, what will be approved, what will get love, what will get connection, and what won't. And then we're seeing what other people want and what works really well for them. So then we're thinking we want it. So all these external things are coming together to really create a lot of times and like make us think that we want certain things. But one thing I want to talk about in this episode is, do we actually want them, or are these just conditioned wants? Really sit with that for yourself. This has been one of the biggest breakthroughs I've had in the last year or so, is really recognizing, like, are these my true self wants, my core self, or are these conditioned wants? Conditioned wants because of the way that I've been absorbing information my entire life of what my nervous system has deemed as safe or what my nervous system has deemed as desirable and familiar, so it wants more of, versus what is actually true to what I want. We'll get into this a bit more in a bit, but a great example of this is so many people, I'm sure you are either one of them or you know one of them, they want these big careers. They aspire to be doctors, lawyers, some type of career that's very well recognized in their family. And so they spend their whole lives thinking that they want to be this, and they go to law school, to med school. They put all this time, blood, sweat, and tears in, and then they become the doctor, the lawyer, or whatever it might be. And they're in the career for however long, it varies per person. And oftentimes they realize, is this even what I wanted? Like, this doesn't feel like me. This doesn't really light me up or make me feel fulfilled. And when they really sit with themselves or they do the deep inner work, they realize, oh, I just wanted it because I learned at a young age that this is what gets me love, or this is what my parents really wanted for me. So I took it on as a want too, which is so natural. A lot of us do this. And I became this version of me, and I took this on this career because that's what I thought successful was. This is what I just thought you do. This is how you provide for your family. So because my parents really wanted this for me, that's what I became. And I took it on as my own want. And I thought that I wanted this too. Or I saw that through the media, through social media, through society, that this is how you become successful. This is what a great career is. So I internalized that, and I thought that this is what I want because I saw that it got you validation and praise and money, and it's a way to support your family, and it was seen as so prestigious. So I became this, which is so natural, all of these wants that we take on. But a lot of times we're never checking in with our true want and our true self and really seeing, but is this what I actually wanted? Or along the way, but is this what I actually want? Or just what I think I should do or I should have? And this can be so sneaky and so like subliminal because, again, it's so radiant throughout our culture and throughout our families that we don't even recognize it. It's just what we do. And then we realize a lot of times, like, was this actually mine? Like, is this actually for me? Or was this for a lot of these other things that I thought that I should do, or people that I was trying to get love from, or what someone else wanted and they just imposed that on me and I took it on? And this can create a lot of wake-up calls in people, and people can really shift their whole direction of life after this. For me, this happened after I went to an Ivy League school. I did all the right things. I checked up all the boxes. And then I realized, but why? For my ego? Because this is what people in my school district did? Because this is what people in my town did? In society, how I saw it, this would make my parents proud? All these reasons. But if I got really in touch with it, like, was this truly me and what I really wanted? Ultimately, the answer was no. Which is why my life now probably looks so different. But we'll get into the bigger wants and those pieces in the next episode. I just wanted to really place this here so that you can just start to notice, wow, these conditioned wants really run deep. Because we are so conditioned that we don't even notice. A lot of times we think that this conditioned self just is who we are. Towards the end of this episode, I will start to share how we can understand what is our conditioned self versus our true self, so you can really start to break this down in your own life and give you some practices to actually start to understand, okay, but what do I want? Not just what do I think that I should do, or what do I think I want, and actually get in touch with our true selves. But so many of us, the world, we are operating as our conditioned selves because that is all we know. That is naturally, we are sponges as we are growing up, and that is all that we are taking in. And so we think that that is ourselves, but really it isn't. As I talk about in this podcast, it's your survival patterns that you acquire throughout life that are really wise. And it is all of this input that we are constantly taking in, and that molds with who we truly are, or that kind of starts to cover who we truly are. Because again, we want to know what's acceptable, what is quote unquote desirable, how we should be. We're ultimately looking to survive and have that connection. And so these true wants can really get, even our true self can really get pushed down over time. And a lot of us become our conditioned self. It can take a lot to start to unravel, which is the work I do with my clients, but to start to really unravel all of these conditionings and see, but who am I actually? Like, what do I actually want? I want to talk about too, another big piece of this is it can be so much easier to know what we don't want than what we actually want. Have you ever had a conversation with someone and they're complaining about all these things that they don't like? And so you say, okay, but what do you want? And then silence. They don't actually know. And a lot of times we might not even know what we want. We know what we don't want. We know if we don't want a relationship. We know if we don't want to feel a certain way. We don't want to feel overwhelmed. We don't want that job anymore. I know that I don't want to have to show up every day. I know that I don't want to do this type of work anymore. I know that I don't want to have to go into my office. I know that I don't want to have to meet with my coworkers. We don't want all these things that we're currently having in our lives. Like if someone ever asks you, well, what do you want for dinner? Well, I know I don't want Thai. I don't want Asian. I don't want this, but I don't know what do I want? And that can feel so much safer to say what we don't want because it's less committal. We're saying we don't want it because there's no risk in saying that we don't want something. Because one, we already maybe know what it's like. And so we already know, we're certain that we don't want it. Or it's just saying we don't want it, but it's not committing us or putting us at risk to try anything that we haven't tried before. It's just saying we don't want it. So that's why a lot of times you'll hear people complain of just, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this. And you're like, okay, well, what do you want? And we don't know. Oftentimes. If this happens to you, know that there is a deep-rooted reason why. It actually feels a lot less safe to the nervous system to commit to what we want. When we say what we don't want, it's familiar. We already know we have it, and so we're just saying we don't want it, and maybe we want to change. But now there's this infinite options of what we could have, of what we do want. And actually choosing that can be really scary because are we picking the right choice? Well, what if we're not? Or what if we say we want something, but we can't actually have it? We try to get it and we fail, or we don't make it happen. There's so much loaded in there that oftentimes people will just avoid ever picking, or people won't know what to pick. And the nervous system, literally our whole lives, like I was saying earlier, we get conditioned into whether if this wanting is accepted. And a lot of times wanting can feel really unfamiliar, and the nervous system is seeking for what's familiar. So when we talk about what's familiar, if their whole lives were shown that we can't really want things, that we can have things we don't want, but if we want something, we might not actually get it. It might not be okay to want it. It might not be allowed to want it. And we're not actually shown why it's not allowed, or we're not actually really shown, okay, well, maybe just not right now. Then we again make these stories. Then it becomes really hard for us to actually want something and like actually put ourselves out there to want something bigger. That's why a lot of times we can say, if we want to start a big business or do these things, it could be easier to just say, no, I'm not going to do it. I don't want that, even when you maybe secretly do. But it's easier than actually putting yourself in the arena. Because when we say, I want this, there's a lot of vulnerability that could be tied to that when we actually say what we want. There's a lot of uncertainty. We don't actually know how it's going to turn out, and we don't actually know what it's going to be like when we have it, because we don't have it. We don't have the experience with it. So maybe we could really want it, but when we get it, it's not what we thought. Or maybe we could really want it and then never get it, and we go after it, but it doesn't happen. And that can feel really vulnerable to actually admit what we want. The nervous system is constantly seeking for what's familiar. So that can actually feel really scary to the nervous system to admit that we want something different than what we have and something that we might not be able to get. On top of this too, it takes a special family dynamic to really show children that they can have anything that they want, for people to really build them up, whether in school, in society, in their family, that they actually can have what they want. So a lot of times people get kind of taught that they can't actually have what they want. They have to settle, that it's not realistic. And so then they dim down what they actually want, or then they don't feel like they can pick what they want because that feels scary. That's a threat. That's so unfamiliar to the nervous system of how can I actually pick what I want? I know I probably can't have this or this or this. And so people then avoid picking what they want. So that concept of not actually knowing what you want can be so deep rooted within our nervous systems, again, from such a young age, as to why we actually don't know what we want. So think in your own life where you've told yourself, I don't want all these things, but I don't actually know what I want. And it could be scary because, again, we don't want to limit ourselves to one thing. We don't want to choose the wrong thing or cut out different possibilities or feel like we're trying for something that's not possible. There's a lot of uncertainty in that. So it can be really scary to actually pick what we do want. And if we don't know what something's going to be like, well, maybe we would get it and not be happy with it. Or maybe we would realize it's not what we want. So there's a lot of vulnerability when it comes to this want and to actually saying what it is that you do want. Also, when we say what we don't want, there's not really much of a risk in that. It's kind of like, okay, I just don't want this, but it isn't actually committing us to anything that might go wrong or that might be vulnerable or can't have. Wanting is actually more exposed. It's asking us to imagine something that doesn't exist yet versus reacting to something that's already happening to us and that's already there. And with this, if we say what we want and we make a claim, well, then we could be wrong or we could be judged or we could be denied. So if we ever wanted something and in the past it's gone badly for us, then our nervous system actually learned that it's safer to stay in the reactive lane, to not actually claim what we want and to stay in the just, I don't know what I want. I know I don't want this, but I don't know what I want. It actually feels so much safer on the nervous system. Also, when it comes to knowing what we want, even just on the day-to-day, it can feel, like I was saying with the nervous system, it can actually feel scary. I know for me in my life, there was a time where I actually thought it was better not to know what I want and to not own what I want and to commit to that. I used to feel that in order to be easy or to be liked or to just seem like I was go with the flow, that it was better to not know what I want. So even if I knew what I wanted, I wouldn't say it. If someone's like, do you want to go to Thai or Asian for dinner tonight? I would say, I don't know. What do you want? I'd want to make sure that they were happy and that they were getting what they want versus what I wanted. I didn't really think it was as important what I wanted. I wanted to please the other person. Or there were times when I literally would have struggle with indecision and I actually didn't know what I want and I would want someone else to make the decision for me or someone else to decide, because there was a lot of, and there is a lot of uncertainty in actually deciding what I was going to want, because it could have been wrong if I picked something. Let's say I picked something to do that day, an activity, but then I wish that I'd done the other activity. Well, there's that vulnerability in that. There's that chance of making a mistake and having it go wrong. So it could be easier to just not pick what I want or have the other person pick, and then it's kind of on them, even though then I'm not getting what I want. So what I didn't realize at the time was that I'm actually abandoning myself because I'm not actually saying what I want and I'm not actually owning what it is that I want. So if I know what I want and I'm not saying it, that's one thing, and we'll talk about that. And then if I don't know what I want and I'm not trying to figure that out, well, that's another. So we're going to talk about them both. So if you know what you want and you're not saying it and you want to please the other person or you don't want to ruffle any feathers, notice why. For me, this is what I used to really think would allow me to be liked and for people to want to hang out with me because it would be easy. And I used to think when people really knew what they wanted and they were direct and decisive, I had a lot of stuff I had to work through around that because I can be direct and I've had to unpack things there. And so I almost hid that whole part of me and I just wanted to flow. And maybe you felt this, right? Be the chameleon, not ruffle any feathers, just see what everyone else wants. You don't care that much. You'll be fine either way. But the thing with this here is, one, not only are we abandoning ourselves, but two, think about when you're in a room and nobody knows what they want and you're trying to decide something and everyone's like, I don't care. What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? How frustrating can that be? It can be so hard when no one is actually owning what they want. Everyone's just trying to appease everyone else. So there actually is so much power when someone does know what they want and they can say what they want and direct it, because then we're leading the group here. Then we're actually leading people in a different direction. Of course, be open to compromise and what other people want. But when we can actually own that, and can be really powerful in helping things move and taking action as well. So start to see maybe where am I trying not to say what I want, but I can actually see how it would be supportive too. Plus, people want to know what you want because we're all different. We all have different needs. We all have different desires. So why do we want to blend in? Yes, it feels safer. And yes, we don't want to ruffle feathers. But can we own what we actually want? And can we trust that it's okay to say that? And can we trust that that will allow us to get what I want? If we don't actually say what we want, then how are we ever going to get it? So this piece of, if I don't choose, then I can't be wrong. Or if someone else chooses, then I don't carry the disappointment. Then it's not on me. Or if I don't admit that I want it, then I don't have to risk not getting it. This indecision can feel so much safer to our nervous system and to our different parts that want to protect us. So this is actually a very wise adaptation that our nervous system will utilize to keep us from disappointment or failure or judgment or the vulnerability of really wanting something deeply. Like, this is so wise. And so I really see you in this. If this is you, I've definitely been there. And also sometimes we can want this certainty in the middle of the unknown, which we can't get. And so that can feel safer when we're just kind of avoiding making that decision because we want to know what's the right decision. So if we remember a time of asking and not getting what we want, then this is what really gets imprinted in our nervous system and how then we show up and how we start to then feel like indecision is safer because there's just less at risk there. There's less we're putting on the line. And now on the other side, when we don't know what we want, there's this piece of, yes, when there's a lot of choices, it can feel there's actually an indecision fatigue, right? The more choices that we have, the harder it is to make a decision. That is true. And so it can be easier to just allow someone else to pick something. And because it can be scary. Well, what if I make the wrong decision? What if I mess it up? What if I don't know? These types of things. But really look at, okay, but do you actually not know? Or are you just kind of too scared to pick what you want? Are you scared that it's going to get turned down? Are you scared that it's not going to be possible? Like, what are the reasons that you're not really allowing yourself to figure out what it is that you do want? Or why do things maybe feel overwhelming when you can't choose? Like, what emphasis, what pressure are you putting on the decision? I know for me, I used to be really indecisive and it used to be really hard for me to make decisions. And so I've scientifically trained my intuition. So it allows me to really see like what I do want, which helps me make decisions a lot. Talk about ways that you can start doing this as well within this episode. But it can be so tricky to actually know what we want because of all these reasons that I've shared. One, is it actually what we want? Or is it all of these muddled things that have gotten on top of us? And sometimes it's like, do we really even care that much? Does it really even matter? But for some, or like, I'd be happy with any of these. And it can be hard to make that decision. But there's so much power in making these decisions and starting to feel for what do we want? Because if we can start to make these decisions on the day to day, start to figure out that and start to work this muscle, then the bigger decisions can get easier as well as we're working this muscle to make these smaller decisions because we got some big decisions to make in our life, right? So we can start to work this muscle for the smaller ones, then that can help too. Additionally, when we don't know what we want, then nothing kind of happens. Yes, there is something to being like a match this moment and seeing what happens. And there's also, when we're not directing the energy anywhere, things can just kind of get chaotic. If we don't know what we want, then how do we know what it is that we even want to do for that day? How do we make any decisions? How do we get moving? It just kind of floats in the air. Or we just maybe settle for what is here. Or we make up stories that, well, this must be what has to happen because this is the opportunity I'm getting presented, instead of directing the energy and actually going after what we want. I'll talk more about in the next episode when it comes to like goal setting and really focusing, making sure those are core wants. But when we actually have no want and we're just like, we can do whatever, that can also create stagnancy because we're not directing the energy anywhere. And then we're also get stuck in indecision and we're unable to move. So there's so much power in actually knowing what you want and allowing yourself the agency to actually go after it and to actually make it happen and to see like it's safe to have wants. It's safe to decide what it is that I want to do and to let people know my wants. And I know a lot of us are women who really holds it all, who want to support everyone, who want everyone to be happy. And we can still do that while honoring our own desires, our own needs, and our own wants, and while actually still connecting to what we want. There's different ways we can communicate our wants. And so we can totally communicate our want in a way that is going to be supportive. That's not like we have to do this, but it can just be, I really would love to do this right now, or this is what I want, but I'm open to hear what you want to, and we can see what works best. There's ways that we can communicate our wants while still supporting other people without abandoning ourselves. We don't need to just say we don't know all the time or just hide our wants because we want to make someone else happier. We could just be happy doing whatever. Like, we can still communicate what it is that we're desiring. Even in a conversation, if you go into a conversation knowing what you want to get out of it, you're much more likely to get what you want out of it than if you just kind of go in seeing like, okay, let's see how it goes. that's probably not going to support the conversation. Intention is so powerful. So when we can actually have intention for how we want things to go or what it is we want in our lives, that can really support us in actually getting there. It can allow kind of unseen forces as well to work with us to really help us get there, and our actions will align with our intention. So having that, even knowing that intention for ourselves, is going to be really supportive in whatever we want to create in life or whatever decisions we want to make or whatever it is we even want to do for that day as well. There's a few concepts here I want to lay for you to just start to think about what it is that you want and to incorporate in your day-to-day life to help you start to figure out what it is that you want and to really build that muscle. Because like I said, knowing what we want and being able to spend less time in this indecision loop of what we want, and like indecision, I know for me, it takes so much time, and it can also be so heavy. Like it's heavy when we're not making the decision, but once we make the decision, then it can feel so much lighter and we actually know and it's set. So that weight gets taken off of us. And a lot of times deep down, if we really connect with ourselves, we do know what it is that we want. We could just, for all those reasons that I shared, be actually scared to say what it is that we want or to really even own that for ourselves and allow ourselves to know. But there is so much power in knowing what we want and in really just owning that and practicing that in our day-to-day lives, in practicing like what we, again, even little things like what we want to eat, what we want to wear today, how we want our mornings to go, what we want in our coffee, and then to, some bigger decisions, what it is that we want to plan for our week for our family, what it is that we want our finances to look, where we're going out to places, what do we want to tell people, like what are we desiring, what type of food do we want, what activities do we want everyone to do, what do we see as the big vision for our family or for our lives and our own businesses and our careers or on our friends. Like what is it that we want in relationships? Starting to get really clear on what it is that we want can really propel us in the directions that it is that we're desiring. So look at your own life and really see all the areas that you're maybe not clear in what you want or where you struggle making decisions or really owning what it is that you want, and start to try out these practices that I'm going to share. And also if you've been wondering like, okay, but is this my true one or conditioned one? Like what do I do here? We're going to get into that too. So first off, one thing is when you're struggling making a decision and when you really don't know, I want you to ask yourself, well, if I did know what I want, what would it be? Because a lot of times we do know. So even just asking this question, if I did know what I want, what would it be? And from there, see what lands, and whatever comes through, then do that thing and accept that, okay, it might be wrong, quote unquote wrong. It might not be the best option, or I might realize it's not what I wanted, but I'm taking the step. I'm sharing it. So just if I did know what I want, what would it be? And just ask yourself that whenever you're not sure and see what comes through. Because a lot of times there's just even that deeper, simple question can allow you to access what you want. Another thing is start to work this muscle and just really practice, like force yourself to make those little decisions. Even if your partner could decide, your kids or someone else, whoever you're with, even if you don't want to share it, just see if you can make these decisions just to see what you want. Knowing that a lot of these decisions aren't life or death. They're not a big deal whether you do one thing or the other. And knowing you can always make a different decision next time. That can be so supportive to know like, okay, this isn't all or nothing. If I don't like this option this time, I can do something different. And just work it with the little things. Work it with where you want to go to eat. What type of food do you want? If you want to go for pizza or Chinese or for Mexican or burgers, just start to see if you can make these decisions. Sometimes it can help actually if someone gives you options, literally depending on your design and your makeup. Certain people will work better with just no options and other people work better if they have a few options. For me, it helps if I have a few options to decide. So you can ask someone, whoever you're with, to give you a few options and then you can decide there. Or what you want to wear for that day. See if you can pick it in record time. Or what you want to do for the day. See if you can just start to pick. If you're with a friend and you have to decide an activity, decide what it is you actually want. See if you can start to make these little day-to-day decisions and start to stretch that muscle of actually owning and knowing what it is that you want. And again, if you decide you want pizza and realize you actually want Mexican, then just get Mexican next time. These aren't huge decisions, but they're going to allow you to start working that muscle of what it is that you want. This can even come up in like, do I want to actually answer this message right now? Do I want to rest right now? Do I want to watch TV right now? Do I want to create right now? Do I want to play with my kid right now? Just in the little day-to-day moments throughout your day, see if you can start to really ask yourself, what do you want? A lot of times we're just on autopilot too, just moving through the day, just doing what's next. See if you can actually pause in each of those moments and say, but what do I want? What do I want here? What do I want here? What do I want here? And this actually ties into the episode on self-love that we did of putting yourself first. You're consistently asking yourself, what do you want? And giving that to yourself. So not only are you building this muscle of what do you want in your own agency, but you're also really doubling down on that self-love, which, like we talked about in that episode, how you act towards yourself is how the world will respond. So this is really way more than a double whammy, but it's also a double whammy for the purposes of this. But it really does so much for us when we can start to figure out what it is that we want. And it can make us feel more solid too, like knowing what we want and owning that. Another piece that I want to give you is your body. When you make a decision, when you're getting asked, like, what do I want? Notice how this feels in your body. If it's a yes, it's typically going to feel really expansive and it's going to feel open when you say yes to something. If it's a no, you're going to feel that contraction. We talked about in the last episode, the difference between that contraction and then expand, expand, expand. So notice when you have to decide what you want in different areas, when you're thinking about what you want, whether in the day-to-day or even in bigger life ones and goals, okay, does this feel expansive in my body? How does this feel? Or does this feel contracted? And if you feel that contraction, then that's most likely your body telling you no. But when you start to build a deeper relationship with your body can a lot of times let you know even before your mind or before you attach all the stories to it, like what the truth is, what you really want or what you don't want through that contraction or expansion. So there's a lot deeper nuance into this. However, this will really serve you, even just practicing this and trying it on. Also, when it comes to, is this a true want or is this a conditioned want? Really ask yourself this, like notice for you when you're making these decisions, when you're thinking that you want something, when you maybe see something someone else has and you're like, I want that. Or even you can ask this with any of your wants that you have that you're practicing throughout the day. Just ask, is this a true want or a conditioned want, and see what comes through. And if it's a conditioned want, then you can dig deeper and you can start to see, okay, but what would a true want be? And if it's a true want, then do it. And you'll start to decipher what's a true want and a conditioned want and start to see what your mind will tell you. For me, I utilize my intuition for this. And with my clients, using my scientifically trained intuition, I'll read for them whether it is a true want or a conditioned want or what their actual true wants are, what their core self wants, because a lot of times, like I said earlier, we don't even know. So if you want me to actually read for you your core wants and what those are so that you know what they are in your life, then just send me a message on Instagram. My handle's in the show notes and we can set something up so that I can actually read for you what your core wants are so you know what they are moving forward to really then make sure you're implementing those in your life. Because like I was sharing, right, a lot of times we have these conditioned wants from our whole lives so that we don't even know, okay, but what do I actually want? What is the core? And with this too, with all these tips that I just shared for you, really just sit with yourself and see like, what is it that I want? Like, what do I want? And see what comes through. What do I want for my life, for my bigger vision, which we'll go into in the next episode? And what do I want in the day-to-day? What do I want my day-to-day to look like? How do I want to be able to make decisions? What do I want when it comes to the little things throughout my day? How do I want to communicate what I want? Or how do I want it to be received? Just starting to really think about all these things around this concept. And again, really sitting with yourself, like, what do I actually want? We'll go way deeper into this piece in the next episode, but just starting to get clear on it here. Lastly, what feels alive in this moment? What feels like a want right now? What feels alive? Follow that aliveness. Follow that. You don't need to know the next 10 steps. You don't need to know what's going to happen in a few years. Just follow that aliveness. What feels the most alive now? Well, I feel more lit up if I do this or if I do that. And just see what lights you up and see how you can start building that muscle, following the aliveness of what you want, and see where that takes you. Because when we can really start to access what we want, when we can start to make those little decisions in our life and really start to take agency in our life of what we want and not just kind of fly by the seat of our pants or please other people, or when we actually start to recognize we can have what we want, like we are worthy enough to have what we want, that we're not just going to get turned down every time, or that we can make it happen, and we start to rewire our nervous systems if we ever felt like we couldn't get what we want, it unlocks so much for us in our lives, and it allows us to really start to create what it is that we want in our lives. And again, like I said earlier, direct the energy towards the life that we really want to create and what it is that we want. So sit with this, really sit with this after and see, well, what do I want? Like, what is it that I actually want for my life? Where do I struggle actually owning what I want and saying what I want? And now that you have the basis of everything I shared in this episode, you can maybe understand why. And you can maybe pinpoint some times in your life that maybe laid this foundation for not knowing what you want. Or maybe you could look at your own life and see, ooh, this is a conditioned want, and this isn't really what I actually want. And start to notice that, like, where do I lie compared to what I was doing because I thought I should or I had to, or what was maybe conditioned into me from my parents for a young age or from school or society. And just start to play around with this and start to see and start to build that muscle of really seeing, what do I want on a day-to-day? What do I want here? What do I want here? And practicing, like, how does it feel when you actually own what you want? And when you say it, does it feel edgy? Does your body feel like sticky? Does your body maybe contract? And this is a different kind of contraction. This is just that uncomfortableness because we're going out of your comfort zone. Does your body start to tighten up and maybe start to shrink a little bit when you're saying what you want? And know that that's just an edge that you can lean into and start to play with. And as you keep saying what you want in different situations, trusting it's not all or nothing, it's not life or death, it's just this one instance and we can change it the next time, and just see if we can start to build that muscle to owning what you want. I hope that this episode really supported you in understanding your relationship to want more, to understand why maybe you struggle saying what it is that you want, or really owning what it is that you're desiring in each moment. Or if you do know what you want, helping you see what was a conditioned want in your own self versus what is a true want. And we'll go more into that in the next episode. But I hope that this episode really gave you that foundation to just understand yourself more, of where you're at on that indecision spectrum and why you might be that way, and to really give yourself compassion in that, and then to also understand why it might be easier to not say what you want and what comes with owning what you want, so that you can, again, have that greater compassion for yourself in that, and showed you the power of actually owning what you want and of saying what it is that you want. I know for me, when I started to get more clear around what it is that I wanted in the day to day, it made things actually a lot easier because I wasn't spending all this time in indecision, and my partner even was supportive about it, because sometimes we would both be like, I don't know what I want. I don't know what I want. And then we just kind of get stuck in this indecision loop. So it just supported us in that. And it just allowed things to flow easier. And when I was actually deciding what I want, knowing what we want isn't too much. It's not anything bad. It can actually really support not only ourselves, because we're actually owning what we want and we're not abandoning ourselves, but it actually supports others too, because it can really support them in seeing like, oh wow, she knows what she wants. Like, she's got this together, and it can inspire them to own what they want too. So if you ever felt like your wants were too much, or if you ever feel like you don't know what you need, or if you ever feel like, I don't know what I want, there's too much, and I don't want to decide, like that feels like a lot. I hope that this episode really supported you in understanding why that might be the case, and in really seeing the power of owning your wants and of discovering them as well, and how that is safe and that is something that can really support you and those around you. So with that, I feel like we went a lot of places in this episode, and we really dug deep into want. So I hope, again, you have a lot more clarity around that, and it really supported you in getting more agency in your wants. Go out, do some of those practices that I shared. See if you can really build that muscle of what you want. Send me a message, let me know how that goes. And if you want to book a session and to really see what your core self wants, then let me know too. And I also host free live weekly webinars where we go deep into these nervous system patterns, where we really piece them apart so that you can really start to understand yourself even more. And it can really free you from some of these patterns to really become more of who you are. So I'll pop that link to my email list to those free live webinars in the show notes so that you can tune into those as well and really start to become even more of who you are and be lit up by life in all the ways. In the next episode, like I said, we're going to break this down even deeper. We're going to go into the big wants that we have and ultimately why we want them, and really how to set ourselves up to be so fulfilled by our wants, not kind of be let down once we get them, which can happen a lot of times. Like I was sharing what can happen with those doctors and lawyers in this episode, but we're going to go into that in a much larger scale. So really listen to this as the foundation and into the day-to-day, just applying your wants. And then in the next episode, definitely stay tuned for that, because we are going to go deep. So with that, own what you want, give yourself the freedom to declare what you want this week, and let's get nourished. If this episode resonated with you, I would absolutely love if you could like, share, and subscribe to this podcast and leave a 5-star review as well. It is my mission to support as many women as possible in truly coming back to themselves, rooting into who they truly are, and ultimately become nourished in all areas of their lives. I would absolutely love for you to join me on that mission and help spread this podcast to anyone who you feel that it would be supportive for. Also, it would mean the world to me if you could reach out to me on Instagram. My handle is in the show notes, and let me know how this resonated with you, what you are loving in the podcast, and what you would like to see more of as well, so we can deepen the relationship over there. If you'd like to take these principles deeper and really embody them on a next level in your own life, I invite you to join my email list. The link is in the show notes. I will be emailing you each week. I host live webinars digging even deeper into these concepts and how you can practically apply them into your own life so that you can fully become lit up by life, nourished in all areas, and really embody all of the principles that I share here on this podcast. So again, the link is in the show notes to join. I would absolutely love to have you on there. I provide a ton of value on my list, different practices you can do each week, the webinars that you can tune into, and a lot of other fun goodies as well. And you'll be the first to know about podcast episodes too. So again, hop on over to my email list so that I can fully support you even further, and let's get nourished.